Welcome to Podnutz Pro, episode number 4, the business IT support podcast. We like to get guys who might be interested in getting into small business support, enterprise support, and give them some of the basic tools they need to make the leap, let's say, from residential to that field. It's a different beast, and luckily we have guys on the show that can explain this in a fashion that hopefully you guys will appreciate. So, let me introduce the co-hosts for the show. First, we have Matt Rainey from ah-computers.com. What's going on, Matt?
Oh, same old Steve.
Same old
Busy
stuff?
day today, that was for sure.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
You look comfortable in that room there. Pillows and...
It's the first time I got to sit down today, running around all day long.
Really?
Yep.
Are you well fed, well rested?
Neither one right now, but
Okay. All right, we'll be done soon. All right, Lalo Nunez from lalonunez.com is joining us live in the studio. Hey, Lalo.
Hey, so how you doing?
Very awesome. How you doing?
Outstanding.
Outstanding. Good. All right. Why don't we get started here? Matt, start us off. What do you want to talk about?
all right. So tonight, what we'll talk about is changing the administrator password on a domain. A lot of times when you're just getting into small business support, you're going to get called in somewhere where they already have a network, already have a server. And one of the things that we do when we go in somewhere new is usually we'll change the domain admin password. We don't know who had it before. A lot of times, well, the person calling you in may say, you're replacing these people. And if they had it, we change it. We're responsible for what happens on the network once we take over. So we limit who has the password.
Definitely.
So we change it.
It's like it's like changing your locks in the house.
Right. So it may be a weak password. Somebody may have it that you don't want to have it. Whatever the reason, even if it's a network that you're taking care of, you have to change it sometimes if you suspect that it's compromised. And there's a few steps that you have to take to change the password. That's what we're going to cover tonight.
On small business server?
Or on any server OS. Small business server is one, but the same rules apply to any server OS when you're running a domain.
Okay.
So, first of all, you have a domain. Briefly say what that is. We're not going to cover it too in depth, but a domain, when you have a server, you have a domain. And in a domain, you're running Active Directory. And that's a database of the username, user accounts, the groups, manages the permissions for those users and groups. So it's a database of users. And the difference between that and when you're running on a work group where there's no domain is you create users locally. So in a home, most likely, if you're running a home operating system, XP Home, Vista, Home, all the accounts are local accounts, meaning when you log in, you're authenticating to a user account that's residing on your computer.
Right.
In a domain, when you log in, you're logging into a domain. Your user account does not exist on the local computer. It exists in the database on the server.
Gotcha. The database is called Active Directory.
Right, Active Directory.
Okay.
So, there's lots of benefits to having the domain where you can control the accounts in a centralized database. But the administrator is a special account. It's, by default, there's only one administrator account that has rights to everything across your whole network.
Okay.
And that's an important account. So when you need to reset it, you need to make sure you're resetting all of the things that rely on the administrator account.
When you reset what?
The domain admin password.
Okay. So you'd be resetting the Active Directory too?
Well, you reset the password for that account that's stored inside of Active Directory.
But you're not wiping out all the users' passwords.
No, just whatever the by default is administrator account, unless somebody's renamed it. But it's the administrator that's the domain admin, the top level account that can do anything.
Because you don't want anybody messing with the Active Directory.
Right, or having access to other things, because that the administrator can do whatever they want, have access to all the computers, all the data, can change permissions for users, can do a lot of things if somebody has that.
Okay.
So when you change the domain admin password, it's pretty easy to do for the first step. Control delete when you're logged in as the domain administrator, change password. Okay. That changes the password, but that just changes the password one place. There are other places that it needs to be looked at. And some of the places, some of the things that we go through when we change it is, they may have services that are running on the server that rely on that are running with domain admin credentials. Okay. In a small business, personally, the only thing we usually see running with those credentials are maybe the backup services. If they have maybe BlackBerry Enterprise server that might be running on domain admin credentials. So if you just change the password by doing control delete change password, those services are going to fail to start.
So what password did you change when you did the control delete?
That just changes the administrator password itself.
How many passwords are there to change?
Well, there's a few. There's a few places that you may have to look at changing it.
Okay.
Like,
so
some
there
services.
There's no one main administrator password.
Well, that's the main password, but other things may be relying upon that password.
Okay.
So if you log in with administrator with a password of admin, hopefully not, but for this example, we'll just say password is admin.
Right.
You may have backup exec services. If you have backup exec installed to do your backups to tape or to disk drive or whatever your destination is, when you install it, it needs credentials to run.
And it doesn't just use your admin password. It needs a different one.
Well, no, it uses the same one. So if you installed it and said, here's my domain admin credentials, those services will run. It'll use administrator with a password of admin because that's what you told it to use.
Right.
So if you don't change any services that rely on run the password, what's going to happen is if backup exec services try and run, it's going to try and log on with administrator password and admin for the password.
Right.
For the account password, and it'll fail because you changed the password.
I gotcha.
So those services have to be changed if they're running on the domain admin password.
No kidding. It seems kind of silly. I mean, if you change the administrative password, it should just change, right?
Well, that'd be nice, but Active Directory is not really aware of other third-party applications that maybe log in with it.
Okay.
It just knows that somebody is authenticating with the administrator account. It doesn't really know that it's a service.
I see.
Like backup exec or BlackBerry Enterprise server.
Gotcha.
And I've seen a lot of places, people that manage their servers themselves, that don't really know. They'll call us saying my backup hasn't run in 3 months. We'll look at it, and of course, the services aren't started for backup exec or whatever they're using, and it's a quick fix. You ask them, well, did you change the password about this time? Yes. Okay, well then you didn't do any of the other steps. So,
that could be the solution. That could be a solution to a problem a lot of guys might have.
A lot of them, yeah. If you just do control delete change password, if their service is running, it'll fail.
I see. Well, they shouldn't be changing their admin password anyway, should they?
No, it's not. It's not often that you have to do this because only if you know it's been compromised, or somebody has it that shouldn't. That's when you change it. So it's not something you're doing often. I mean, some people are going to say, "Oh, you should change this stuff every 90 days," but that's not my philosophy. We put very strong passwords for our administrator accounts, and normally at least 15, 20 characters. They're a combination uppercase, lowercase, numbers, special characters. They're very complex.
Okay.
So we don't use anything dictionary word or anything simple. They're very long. And in fact, we give when we in all of our clients, we have a contact and we give them the domain admin password. So somebody at the business we support has the password.
Okay.
Because if they want to call somebody else, they just want to break ties with us for any reason, or we all get hit by a bus, we're all out at an office party, we get a plane crashed to our building, whatever the reason, they have the password.
Okay.
And every time I give it to them, they say, "Oh my God, that's long. Am I supposed to remember that?" And we tell them, "No, you just keep it somewhere safe in a file, and if you need it, you have it."
I see.
They always want to complain that's long, but I tell them you should never log in with this. Never. If you think you need to log in with this, call us and ask us, or tell us why you think you need to log in with this, because you can only hurt the server.
You should ask them, what do you want to change it to? See what they say.
No, they do stuff like admin or can we put no password?
No password.
Right. Yeah.
I've had requests from customers when I give them a long password. They say, "Can we change this?" I say, "Well," and I ask them the same thing. What do you want to change to? And they say, "How about they make a like hat." I'm like, "Well, no, I'm not gonna do it. I mean, I'm responsible for it,
Right.
so I explain it's a security risk, and they can make something up. Just tell them, look, you can change it. It's got to be at least 15 characters, and it's got to have, it's got to be complex. So
Right.
if you want to make it up, let me know what you want to put it to, and we'll change it to whatever you want,
Gotcha.
providing you follow these guidelines."
Right.
So,
Right.
and they never do it. Their goal is to get it to be simple to log in.
Of course.
In which case, I remind them, don't forget, you're not supposed to log in with this.
Right.
So the services are one. We like to keep things, since we have it complex, other things are the same password. So if you change one to keep things clean, the router login. We usually have the same password as our domain admin password.
Okay.
So you have to remember to go in and change that. And that's just for keeping things clean, because in 2 years, if nobody's logged into the router and you didn't change it to match it, you might have to remember, okay, what was my old password? Because you're not. So all these other passwords I'm gonna say, we usually just keep them just to keep them clean, all the same.
Okay.
So we changed the router password. Also scheduled tasks. This doesn't happen often, but somebody might be running a scheduled task that's using the domain admin password. So you want to change the scheduled task, because in there it saves credentials. And if you save the wrong credentials, the task will fail.
Okay.
So scheduled tasks, kind of like services, but we don't use those often or at all, really, because they're if you're trying to use a scheduled task for something, you really should look for a better solution than that. So anyway,
Okay.
another thing, if you have on a server, normally you can have some kind of centralized solution.
Centralized what? You broke up a little bit.
Okay, antivirus.
Okay.
So it's gonna, a server component and a workstation component. For example, we use Trend Micro a lot. So our Trend Micro has to log into the console. We change that to match the domain admin password.
Okay.
Trend Micro has an uninstall password. So if a client wants to uninstall Trend Micro from their desktop, it requires a password. We change that password because we don't let clients uninstall the Trend Micro. No good can come from that. There's also an unload password. If you just want to unload it for a little while, not uninstall it, but like disable it, we change the unload password.
Okay.
So Trend Micro alone, that's 3 passwords to change.
I see.
Now, if you really want to be secure, which you really should, so remember we said we can log on locally to a computer or through a domain.
Mm-hmm.
All workstations, before you join them to the domain or even after, they still have local accounts on them.
Okay.
So there's all computers have a local administrator account.
Okay.
Those should not be blank. Those should be complex too. Now, those don't necessarily have to be the same as the domain admin password, but I like to have all my local admin passwords the same on a network. So if I think that's compromised, you can change all the local admin passwords on your workstations.
You just got to go from one to the other to the other?
You can do it from the server.
Okay.
There's ways to do it from the server, so you don't have to go visit each one.
Okay.
As long as the computer's on, you can do it.
Sweet.
If you have more than one server, you want to definitely make sure. Now, those servers are different. The local admin accounts for the servers, I match the domain admin password for that. So I can log on locally, or I can log into the domain with the same administrator and domain admin password.
Okay.
That's just servers, because no one should be logging in locally to the servers either. Because I've actually seen issues where an admin has changed the domain admin password, followed everything right, changed almost everything, but didn't change the local admin password on one of the servers, and the old admin was getting in that way. He was able to log in locally, so he was limited what he can do, but he was still getting into a server.
Why was he trying to get in?
People do strange things. So this particular guy, they had a bad parting with him. This was 2 admins before us.
So he tried logging in to mess around with him?
Oh, he was. Because
that's criminal, right?
Yeah.
It is.
But it happens.
They couldn't prove anything.
Damn.
Yeah.
See, one of the reasons we got called in, because the person that So 2 admins ago, they got rid of him. Somebody replaced him. This person was having some problems, and he couldn't figure out what the problems were. Turns out his problems were being caused by the other admin logging in. So when we looked at logs, we could see login times for under the administrator account because they had security login turned on, but he didn't look at it. So when we changed all the passwords, even local passwords, that stopped happening.
I see. Damn, that guy, he's got some cojones.
Well, I don't know if I told this story before, but I'll go over it later on with somebody who really has got some cojones.
Okay.
And definitely good too. Also, if you are setting up a network for a client, the documentation is key. So while you're setting up the antivirus, any backup application, that you document what the ID and password is. So when you do have to change the administrative password, then you can open up this documentation saying, okay, I gotta change A, B, C, and D. Because when you change the admin password and you forget a service or a scheduled task, or whatever the case may be, we'll find out rather quickly. Because stuff breaks.
Yeah, or worse, you won't find out, and backups hadn't run in 3 months. So,
Exactly.
yeah, and what we do is every customer we have a file on them. We
Good.
give them the passwords, and we have a client directory. So all of our clients, we have files on everything, all the passwords, what the old passwords were. So if we change a password in our file, we'll have password as of and a date.
Good.
So we can even go back to old passwords if we ever miss something or if somebody didn't tell us something. Even what the passwords were when we took over, we put passwords when we took over as of a date, and then when we change it, password as of when we changed it. So I can even go back and see what the passwords were before we even serviced their account.
That's great. And everyone take a key from Matt. And again, documentation is key, because the last thing you want to do is have something not working and then you're trying to remember what 3 passwords ago was. So.
Right, and that's especially true when you try and look at, if you try to uninstall Trend Micro, and the password's not working. That's not as hard because you can go reset the password, but it's just aggravating, and you might overlook it. It just causes frustration, and things take longer.
Yeah.
And there's ways to recover everything, but
Sure.
that just takes more time.
Or in the event of a router, if you forgot what that password was and you had to reset it, well, now you have to reset your whole entire config. So
Right.
that's
Yeah.
documentation.
Yeah, resetting routers, that can be a pain, especially if they got a complicated setup with a bunch of VPNs.
VPNs, yep. I agree.
Yeah, that's not fun. Now, another thing we check when we're doing this, especially if we're taking over for somebody, a new one, you have control, but if you're taking over for somebody, you can change the administrator account. But what you also have to do is there are groups in the server, like there's a group called domain admins. There's a group called enterprise admins. There's a bunch of administrator groups. So let's say the old admin's name is Bob. Well, Bob may have put an account called Joe under domain admins group. So it's not very obvious that Joe has admin rights. So you can change all the administrator passwords you want. You've also got to go and check the groups to make sure that there aren't users in there. And really, in a small business server, there's no reason to have anybody in those groups other than administrator. Domain admins, enterprise admins, there shouldn't be regular users in there.
Okay.
So if there are, you first ask why they're in there. And if they don't know, I take them out and then see what stops working.
Gotcha. See who complains.
And the reason,
Right. Normally, if somebody has a permissions issue, and the way that they fixed it was they just gave them full rights to everything.
all right.
That's not a good solution. It's a terrible solution, actually.
Exactly.
So look at all the groups and take everybody out that's in that group, because he may put a backdoor. Joe just might like to log in as Bob, so you can't track him. Also, might be getting more in depth. I just thought about this. This is something that happened to us too. Check the rights if they're running an Exchange server for the mail server. By default, everybody only has rights to their own mailbox by default. But I've seen at least one case where, let's say Bob was the old admin. Bob gave himself rights to everybody's mailbox. Now, he didn't make himself an administrator, so it wasn't obvious what he was doing. but he gave himself full rights to the everybody's mailbox.
Huh.
So he was checking the CEO's mailbox. He was checking the vice president's. He was checking everybody's mailbox.
Wow. Stupid
So
Bob.
that's, one more thing. If you have reason, just maybe give it a quick check. We'll cover that later on, but just to know that that's something that you need to check. There's also rights for the mailboxes.
Exactly. And what the point I wanted to bring up, you should only use an admin account when you're making a change in the server or you're modifying something. So if I log in as Lalo, that should not be an administrative account. If I need to do something, I log off and log on as administrator. Some people get a little bit lazy, so I add, like Matt's saying, the Lalo account to the domain admin account, so I don't ever have to log in as administrator. So
I see.
that's why he's saying that you have to check those groups, because a lot of people will just add themselves to those administrative groups because they don't want to log off and log back on as a different user.
Uh-huh.
Right. And that shouldn't be often they're making those changes. So, and that's the kind of people you have to worry about.
Right.
Sometimes they do it because they're like they're lazy. They just always want to do whatever they want to do without worrying about anything. So it's either that or they're just trying to. QuickBooks didn't work, so I'm just going to give them domain admin rights to everything.
Yeah.
Now, if you have to reset the domain admin password and you know the old one, that's fine. You can follow all these steps. It's not a problem. But what happens when you don't know the domain admin password? That's more tricky to reset.
Okay.
Now, with a local account, you can use that offline NT password register. You can boot up to that, tell it, here's the administrator account, here's a new password, right? I don't know I think we've all used that probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that doesn't work with the domain administrator account, because when you're using that tool, it's only modifying local accounts stored on that computer.
Right.
Active Directory database doesn't store their user accounts there. It stores in Active Directory.
So we're getting into now. Getting into cracking. We have
a little bit.
If we need to crack the admin password, is what you're telling us how to do here.
Right. And I want to tell you how to it's just important that it's possible.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we're not gonna go through all the steps. I'll go through some of the steps.
No,
but
I like it.
It's
interesting. I want to know.
Because we've had customers it happens fairly often where we get a call from a client and we get a new customer because we can do this. They've called everyone else and no one knows how to do it. They said it wasn't possible.
Exactly.
You got to reload Windows. It's a domain admin. You can't reset it if you lose it. That's just it. But it's possible. There's a few steps to take.
Okay.
Now, when you're on a server, I don't know if you're familiar with the domain when a workstation joins a domain, but when you get to a login screen, you have username, password, and then depending on your version of Windows, log on to. Okay. And in that log on to drop down is the domain name, or it says whatever the computer name is, this computer. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So of course, when you pick the domain, you're using an account that was created on the server.
Right.
When you pick this computer, you're logging in with an account created on that computer.
Right.
A server running Active Directory does not have that choice. You can only log in to the domain.
Okay.
There's no local login.
Right. So what do you get in through a workstation?
No.
Okay.
What you have to do is inside of Windows, when Windows is booted up, the server's booted up, there's no local account available. But there is a hole to get through. So since all your accounts are stored in Active Directory, there has to be a way to restore Active Directory if you need to.
Okay.
And you can't restore Active Directory if Active Directory is loaded. So on servers, there's the F8 boot option that says Windows or directory restore mode. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If you boot to that, there is a way to log in locally in the machine without Active Directory loading. Because when you first installed Windows, it asks for a password. That password you put in is the directory restore mode password.
Okay.
So let's say you want to restore Active Directory. This is what it's intended for. You would boot up to directory restore mode. Active Directory does not load. you can log in and restore Active Directory, and then restart, and your Active Directory is loaded from your restore.
I see.
But the method to reset the domain admin password is you can use that offline NT password editor. You boot up a server with that, and you can reset the password. And the password you're resetting is the directory restore mode password.
Okay.
Okay. So now you can boot up and select directory restore mode,
Right.
and log in. Now, you don't have access to Active Directory right now because it didn't load. But there is a script that I've found and used a few times where you run the script and it actually resets the admin password in Active Directory.
Really? And you run the script as when you're logged into the server with the in that restore mode?
Right.
I see.
Right. It's a little file. It's a little batch file. It takes a second to run and resets it. Now, before I run this, of course, this is not supported by Microsoft.
Of course not.
So I always tell the customers, I've never had it happen to me, but I guess it could. I tell them this is basically a hack. I say, we can try this. This is a last resort. I make sure that we're sure we don't know the password. You know, this is I tell them this, by running this, it could leave your server unbootable. So we could run this and your server could be useless after this.
Why do you say that?
Well, it's doing some things behind the scenes. It's messing with the registry.
Okay.
It is messing with the Active Directory database.
Okay.
So just as a precaution to cover my butt, I tell them this could trash everything. So if it does, it's going to cost you a lot of money to get this back up because basically it'll be useless.
Do they usually go for it because it's you're their last hope?
They've always gone for it. It's just to cover my butt.
Yeah, I got you.
Because something could happen. Who knows? I could lose. The power outage could happen right in the middle of cracking this Active Directory password.
Right.
So just to cover myself, I tell them this could trash everything.
What's the name of the script? Where do you get it?
It took me some research to find this, and it's no name. I can find it. I can send you a link, and maybe we can post it in the show notes.
Does anybody,
but the important thing is to know that
chat
it's
room,
possible.
Did anybody in the chat room figure it out? Any of the things that they said there? Are you logged in or no?
I'm logged in. I didn't see anybody.
NT passkey snooper.
Nope, that doesn't sound familiar.
Okay.
I don't even know if it had a name. It was just some script that
really
I found on some website, and I said, "Well, it's worth a try."
Damn.
It's not my server. I gave him the appropriate warning. No, actually, I did test it on a test server just to make sure. And while I'm looking for this little script, because I'm sure I'm going to want it one day again, the reason I first had to do this is because I got a call from a client. This is a new client, and they asked if we could do it, and I told them, yes, I can. So we had to have a meeting. I went the next day, and I walk in. They said, "Oh, you can wait here. They're coming." And I can hear from the other room yelling, screaming, cursing. And you never know what you're going to walk into when you go to a new customer's office. And it sounds pretty bad in there. And I'm thinking, boy, I wonder if I should stay. I mean, it sounds like they're about to fight.
Right.
So eventually two of the people walk in, and they introduce themselves as one of the ones that called me in. Now, he's the boss. He's like the owner. And he says, okay, are we ready? Can we do this? I said, yeah, let's do it. And I gave him the warning. And he said, well, before you do that, they got the guy that was yelling at, apparently. He comes in. He was the admin.
Was he all beat up, like bruised?
No, he was pretty upset, but he looked physically okay. So they said, look, we're going to ask you one more time. What's the password? He says, you don't give us a password, you're fired. And he said, I can't give you the password. And so they started again. They said, why can't you give us a password? He said, because I don't think you need it. Now, this is his boss talking. He says, this is my server. I own this server. I pay for the server. I pay you. I want the password. And he refused to give him the password.
Wow.
He said, okay. You can leave. You're fired. And I guess he thought that it wasn't possible because he was looking at me. He sees my shirt with my logo. He told him at one point, I know what you're doing. You're trying to scare me. You're trying to scare me having these other computer guys come in. So he said, can you do it? I said, yes, I can do it. And he kind of looked surprised. Took me a few, it takes, as long as the server takes a reboot twice, that's how long it takes. So that was, that's the first time I actually used it on live server, and it worked fine.
Damn. Well, what did they? What were they like? Were they amazed?
They were happy because they thought their server was being held hostage by this guy.
That's right. That's what he was doing. He's holding it hostage.
Their next, here's the script. Their next action was going to be to call the police.
Sure. What did this guy think? That was job security? How could he think that?
But he saw it. Oh
my gosh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Because
Yeah,
I don't think you
found
guys
the
need to
script.
get into the server. What could he possibly be thinking? He must have been hiding something on the network. I mean, jeez.
Well, this was actually a guy who was looking at everybody's mailboxes too.
Oh, that was that Bob dude?
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course, that's not his name. But,
Yeah. We call him Bob.
this guy was a nightmare. I mean, he was a real nightmare. He actually he registered the domain name for the company personally, and he hijacked it. So when they fired him, he kept the domain name.
Damn.
And this had to go to court. They had to sue him to get the domain name back.
Sounds like all of his plans were foiled.
Well,
Yeah, but it happens a lot.
He didn't wind up on the winning side of this. That's for sure.
Damn.
See, because a lot of folks don't know how powerful a domain admin is. I mean, you have all the passwords, you have all the configs, you have all the backups. I mean, and a lot of businesses, when they let the domain admin go, and then at that point they find out, wow. So,
Like a rat's nest.
yeah, and what Matt is describing is a perfect reason why if you do walk into a small business environment, that server has to be behind a locked door. This is exactly why. I walked into businesses where the server is behind the receptionist desk, by the water cooler, and so you don't want anyone having physical access for this reason that Matt is describing.
Wow.
Exactly. Yeah, and they were amazed that I could do this in a few minutes. I said, well, if you have physical access, it's over. I mean, that's the first thing. It's like Salah says, you got to secure this. You can't leave it out. Even if some people have a server that has a locked front cover for the server, they think that's secure.
Right.
I said, well, see, nobody can get to it. And so I look at the back. I said, well, I can just pull the power out of it. Now you can't use it.
Yeah.
I didn't think of that. I can unplug it and take it. Your little.
Right.
When I get home with a hammer, this little front cover is not going to last very long.
Right. That's awesome.
So yeah, definitely physical security. But in a small business, they're not going to take your advice a lot of times, especially for things like security, physical security. They don't see the need.
All right.
They don't want to spend the money on it, and they don't have the room. They say, well, we have to put it here because we don't have it. I can't put this in its own room and take up an office. So a lot of times they're not gonna do it.
Right.
So you warn them. Again, you tell them you're in a small business. Your main threat is internal. The people who are here every day. That's who you're trying to protect yourself from mostly. They're the ones that are gonna hack your server. They're the ones that want to be looking at your email. They're the ones if you're running pirated software and they quit, they're going to turn you in.
Right.
So beware of the employees.
So what's the name of that script?
There's no name of it when I found it. It's just you have a
URL or something? People are going to want to know this. That's why I'm asking.
I can send you the script itself. We can maybe post that, but I did find it. And it's just a little script here. I mean, I just named it DC password recovery script is what I named it. It's just and I got the instructions, text document instructions with it. Yeah, it's a change admin password CMD script. It's a CMD.
Okay.
And all you do is run that. In the CMD, you can define what you want the password to be. Now, the one I have in there is just some random random password that's complex, because what happens, which it says on here where it credits, so it credits the people who made it, where I got it from. One though, you have to put this past complex, because if you run this script with a password that's not complex, and the server requires a complex password, it won't work.
Okay.
It'll run and it just won't work. So
Gotcha.
you've got to have a complex password in this text document to make sure that it's going to work.
Okay. Who made the script? I know people are going to email me about this, wanting this. That's why I'm asking you.
Let's see.
Or does it have a website or?
Where's the link? Okay, let me see. I'll post this link. I think this is where I got it from.
Okay.
This might be the password to this might be the password to the offline NT pass. This might be the link to the offline password registry editor.
Gotcha. All right. I was just asking. If you don't have it, no big deal. Well, people.
But I've got the tool. I can send you the tool, and I'll try and find the link so people can do it themselves.
Yeah.
But
let's do that.
I don't see a link in what I have so far.
All right. We'll get it by the end of the show. Don't worry about it.
But the main thing is to know that it's possible, because with enough searching, people can find this.
Right.
The main thing is when you have a customer that calls you asking if you can do it, or a potential customer saying, "Can you do this?" The main thing though is you can say yes.
Yes.
And then do the searching.
Right. Right. Okay.
Now I've gotten calls to change domain admin password because they said they didn't know it, and when I get there, the server's logged in. I said, "Well, it's logged in already," and they said, "Right, but we don't want to log out because we don't know it."
All right.
But yet,
they can change it from being in.
You can change it from being in.
Right.
So that one was, and actually I think they did know it because they said it locked once in a while and they can unlock it. So if you can unlock it, that's what the password. I don't think they realized that. But
silly customers.
And you can charge, you can charge what you want to charge for this. This is what you call a premium service.
Aha.
Because it's not everybody who knows how to do this, or even knows that it's possible. And so you can charge, I never recommend ripping people off, but if your hourly rate's $85 an hour, you may say this is worth $300 to do it.
Sounds good to me.
And
it's worth it to people to not have to redo their whole server.
Exactly. For folks or owner of a company or for a business, for it to continue to run, they'll drop that in a heartbeat.
Yeah. So I wouldn't go with 1,000. But if $200-300 is reasonable to do this.
Okay. $1 million.
I guess it depends on the company. But yeah. So use it wisely.
Okay.
Now, for a question I'm pretty sure a lot of people are asking out there. What if I have an admin account and you knew what my password was? It was Duke, just for kicks and giggles. Could you reset the administrator password if you knew what my password was and I had a domain admin account?
So if you have a domain admin account on your password, yeah, I can do whatever I want.
Okay. And I wanted to bring that out there to people out there. So if you do know a password to someone who has a domain account, because I've seen it where some people give the president of that company a domain admin account. Don't ask me why. But in the event, those are things to check first before you go hardcore here with that script.
Right. So yeah, if you know somebody for sure has a domain admin account, then and that's one reason why when I'm taking over somebody, I check those groups and take people out of there. So normally I take them out, but I guess if it's hard to know because the user's not going to really know if he has a domain admin account password.
Right, but you would know, I guess, if you can RDP into that server, or like there are ways as you as the IT professional would know if it's a domain admin account.
Yeah, you can probably check the SID too.
Right, I think they all start with 500.
Because the SID of the user account is different for an admin account than for a regular account.
Right, I think they all start with 500, and I could be wrong, but
yeah, and then I think the admin accounts start like 1,000.
Right.
So that could be one way. Check the SIDs. So yeah, that might be one option. But if you want to charge them too, and in person, the first time I did it, I wanted to try it.
Okay, cool.
And I knew that guy who wouldn't give the password. I knew his admin was domain admin pass account, but he wouldn't tell me what it was.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure he made sure no one else was.
Right.
Because he was pretty shifty.
Mhm.
And so as soon as I logged in, he left, and they said he's going to his computer to see if he can get back in.
Yeah.
And they knew he was going to try. So when I logged in, I tried to do this stuff as quick as possible,
Mhm.
so he wouldn't be able to log in.
And this is why.
In fact, and I'm sorry, Lalo.
No,
in fact,
good.
what I did was I unplugged the internet while I was doing this,
Good move. Good move.
so he couldn't get in. And once I was done, I plugged the internet back in.
And if you ever go into an environment where the company hates IT guys, or they have a real aggressive toward IT guys, the story that Matt is telling is why. Yeah.
They've gone through that experience probably in the past.
So whoever walks into that door, they already frown upon that person. So so if you're walking to an environment, don't ever get offended. They probably went through a bad experience with someone, and that's pretty much why.
That's good to know.
Oh yeah, if once they get a bad experience, everybody to them doesn't know what they're doing. They're
Right.
all yahoos.
Exactly. Exactly.
But on the opposite side, I know it's hard not to do it because some of the stuff I see is so ridiculous.
Yeah.
You gotta try. I try not to talk bad about anybody that I'm replacing.
Sure.
First, it's not professional,
It's not.
and two, if they might just see me as criticizing the person that make me look better.
Right. And let your actions speak for yourself. So, but the minute Matt was able to reset that password, that showed that company all they needed to know, that he knew what he was doing, that he was the man. So.
And then they asked Matt, "Give me the password," and Matt's like, "No,
Yeah, that'll cost you extra.
you guys don't need to know it."
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and we've been doing work for them now for years.
There you go.
Good.
Good job.
And that issue with, I had to go to depositions.
Really?
I had to go talk
happens all
meetings
the
with
time.
lawyers with this guy
Really?
for years. This thing dragged through.
I've had. Oh,
I
I'm
got
sorry.
to bill my client for going to those meetings, but
It still probably wasn't that fun.
I've known people that have gone to jail, served a couple of years because they got terminated and they wanted to be Mr. Smarty Pants and change all these passwords to these services. Of course, no one can figure it out, and the company is losing a couple $100,000 a day. And they find out that it was someone doing something like malicious, and they take them to court, like Matt's saying, and you will go to jail. It's better
Wow.
just to leave and just move on. So.
Right.
yeah, and they can get sneaky, especially if you're taking over somebody. You have to be a kind of a detective and know, okay, what are ways he could access things he shouldn't.
Exactly.
And it's not just a domain admin account groups or enterprise groups. Any other group, you have an accounting group, check that.
Right.
He doesn't need to be in. And of course, if the first thing you want to do if he's leaving, it definitely, if he has an own account, disable his account.
Yes.
Because he doesn't need it. So remember to disable any personal accounts they had. They probably don't have them if he's just using administrator. But look for it if they've got any kind of remote software, like someone just said, Techno Ravel. If they have Log Me In or something, get rid of that stuff so he can't log in.
Exactly. And I know that you probably will touch this on this subject in a future show, but this is where logs are your friend. If you look at your logs at your server, at your firewall, you can see interesting stuff happen that shouldn't be happening, and that tips you off that someone's trying to log in or someone's trying to come out from the outside. So this is where logs would be your best friend.
Right. And I've seen that before because I've seen we had to change the admin password a few weeks ago someplace because somebody came in and when they left for the day, they logged out. And when they logged in the morning, when they got to the computer, the username said administrator. It wasn't their name. So that screen, the login screen, shows the last person who logged in.
Uh-huh.
So they called saying, look, there's like 4 computers. Why do these computers all say administrator? And we say, well, we'll look into it. I can look in the logs, and I saw about between 12:30 and 2 o'clock in the morning, somebody authenticated as administrator and then logged into all these other computers. So in this particular company, 3 or 4 people knew the domain admin password. I talked to all of them. None of them said, "No, we didn't log in last night. We didn't do that." So somebody had it who shouldn't,
Right.
and they were sloppy because their fix should have been. Of course, they didn't know the user password. Let's say they logged into Jane's computer. Well, they can't log in as Jane now to put Jane's login back in. They can type Jane right there, but it's just going to go back to administrator after a few minutes.
So they
the last person who logged in is what it shows.
So they have to just. Well, I mean, the server was probably locked up. That's why they didn't do it from the server, or.
No, they logged into the servers.
Oh, and all the workstations. Why would they log into all the workstations?
I don't know.
Who knows?
I don't know what they were. They asked me the same thing. What are they looking for? I said, well, I don't know what they were looking for.
Right.
I asked them, what do these 4 computers have in common?
Yeah.
I mean, do they do accounting? What are they? And they didn't know either. They said there's nothing special about these computers.
Yep.
It's weird.
Yeah.
So
and
that was,
somebody
so the logs showed that somebody was logging in as administrator, successful logins at 2, and then I could see, actually the person left their terminal server session open.
That's smart.
And I could see the connections to the other computers still open.
Yeah. Most folks.
So this particular customer, we set up their router. It didn't have login enabled by default, so we did all the IP logging, but it never happened again. We changed the password, it never happened again. So.
Go ahead.
Oh no, and I was saying that I've seen where folks get a little bit smart about it. Not that I advise on doing this, but when they log in as administrator, when they log out, they cover all the tracks. We're clearing logs. They'll take that policy that Matt is talking about, and they'll change it where it doesn't show your last username. So
they're professionals.
But this guy was apparently a doofus. So.
Right.
Sounds like
there
Ocean's
is an option
13.
to not show any name in there.
Right.
So yeah, that's one. It's good. Is both ways for security. If somebody comes in and walks into a computer, if they know your username, if they see a username that was logged in last, well, they got half of the combination they need to log in. They know a username. So one policy is to not show that name so they don't have username or password. But some people like to see the username, and you can see who logged in last. And you'd be surprised how many users forget their username. Golly.
No. Happens all the time. Which drives you nuts. Like, didn't I reset your password? I used to have a friend. It's kind of funny. He was good friends with the owner. So every time he would forget his password, he would reset the owner's password to the dummy 123 just to poke fun at him.
That's great.
I don't advise on doing that with your clients, but I'm just saying.
I just tell them the password is Matt is great.
There you go.
Type it in. One more thing I thought of. This happened somewhere too. I said before that the guy gave himself rights to the mailboxes. I had another guy who didn't know how to do that. So what his solution was, there's a place in Exchange where you can send a copy of all the mail to somebody else.
Nice.
This guy went in and set a forwarding address so it delivered to the original person and delivered to him. And it was some Gmail account. He created a Gmail contact, and he was forwarding all this mail to a Gmail account outside. I've seen that before too.
Wow.
And that's, it's hard to spot. You really got to have suspicion that somebody was doing something wrong. And when you get called in, they may say, we think he's doing something.
Right.
So you're not normally going to check that stuff. And the only way I found this particular one time is because we had to actually go in and forward somebody's mail to an alternate account. And that's when I saw that Gmail account in there.
Really?
And I asked them, who is this for? And they didn't know. And it turned out that was an old administrator's Gmail account.
He used his own personal Gmail account.
Yeah, he was forwarding it to himself. So
he didn't even create. He's stupid enough to not even create a separate one just for that.
I mean, somebody recognized it as his.
Nice.
Right.
Stupid.
Doofus.
Yeah.
Dumb criminals.
Well, you got to know to look there. Sometimes, especially if you're new to administering these things, you don't know that that's even an option.
Right.
And Matt has a good point. When you have a few years underneath the belt, or when you've been through like the trenches and been through this stuff, you kind of know what to look for.
Right.
So
cool.
Yeah, and the main thing is just like I said, just to know that these things are possible, so you can know what to look for. I mean, that from listening to the show, you're obviously not going to remember everything, but just to know to look back and remember. Oh wait, I know I need to do this. Let me see how I do it now.
Yeah,
right?
no, it's at least you're making them aware a little bit instead of being completely ignorant of it. You got to start learning somewhere.
Yep. You got anything else to add, though?
Oh no, I'm good to go.
I do have a voicemail and an email when you're ready, Matt.
Okay, yeah, let's go.
Right now?
Yep.
Okay. This email is from Haroon. He says, let me get back to his question. Okay, well, let's see. Hi, Steve. I have an idea for a show topic. Most of us are IT technicians to residential customers moving to small businesses. One area I want to learn is how to set up a peer-to-peer environment for a small business. If a step-by-step guide can be discussed when it can be used and when it shouldn't be used. Many thanks. And I actually answered him because he sent that on the 9th. And I said, Haroon, give Podnutz Pro a listen, and you will probably decide on using a server rather than a peer-to-peer, but I'll bring it up to Matt and see what he says. What do you think, Matt?
Well, I don't like peer-to-peer networks.
Even though it's like, even if it's like a 3-person network, just you like setting up a server just because it gives them the ability to expand?
If it's a 3-person, depends on what they're doing.
Okay.
Exactly.
I might just do a peer-to-peer.
Okay.
But
And again, depending on what they're doing, if it's hard drive space, I give them a NAS.
A NAS? Yeah, why not?
Because 3 people, and what are you doing with like a server with 3 people? For most environments, I'm just saying.
Okay.
yeah, I've seen. I've sold servers to people with 4 users because they were using specialized software and it had to have a dedicated server to run on.
True. Very true.
They only had maybe 4 in the office, but then they also wanted salespeople to come in or outside vendors to do something. So it all depends on what they're doing. If it's just 3 people and they're running QuickBooks and they want to share QuickBooks,
peer-to-peer.
I would do it a peer-to-peer.
Maybe in a future show, Haroon, we could we'll talk about that. But
yeah, I don't do it often. I always try and push a server, but
all right, we will.
When I think it's needed.
Yeah, I got what you're saying. We'll keep it in mind. Let me see what else he said. Okay, that pretty much answers his question. After I answered that, I said he says, yeah, but a server's a large investment, and for small businesses, less than 5 users, it might not be worth it. So he needs a peer-to-peer environment.
And I don't make the decision for the customer. I tell them this is what I suggest, and I let them worry about their budget and their. I don't ever go into I don't go into a client thinking they can't afford this. I don't know what they can afford.
Right. And then if you're gonna offer a server, don't just offer a piece of equipment that says this is gonna cost $5,000 or $7,000. Explain to them the benefits. Explain to them how it benefits them. All the features and redundancy. Most owners of small companies will invest that money knowing that it's a investment for a couple of years. But if you just go in there with a quote for $7,000,
right, without explaining what it's exactly going to be used for.
Yeah, and again, like we talked about before, there's different levels. There's entry-level servers. There's mid-range.
Exactly.
So you can, if it's a smaller environment, and if they have any plans for growth, like we said before, I would go with the server. But there are instances where you peer-to-peer is preferable, and we can maybe cover that one week.
All right, we'll keep it in mind. Thanks, Haroon. I appreciate the email. Voicemail looks like from Max, according to Google Transcript. We'll see who it really is.
Hey, Steve, this is Max in Tech.
It is Max.
Hey, like everyone else, I've been enjoying the Podnutz Pro series. One thing I would like maybe for you guys to do is have a show that does a complete build-up of a network for a business, like a small business, from, designing and layout of the network to implementing server room area, setting up a server, getting a few computers on there. That would be something that would be interesting and would be a good start for, I think, a lot of us out here that's never done that, and at least give us an idea of kind of where to start and which direction to build from. All righty. Appreciate it. Thank you, Matt, also, for your time, and you guys keep up the good work. Thank y'all. Bye.
Yeah, interesting. That gave me an idea to make a product for that, a Podnutz product. But no, it seems like what we're doing is each show it fills in a little piece of that puzzle.
Right. I think we're going to cover that stuff. That's definite on the list. You know, 1 week maybe, installing the server, from scratch, the prompts you're going to get, what you should put, that kind of thing. Then 1 week joining the computers to the domain, so you can have that. That's definitely going to be covered in a series of shows.
Okay. Max is in the chat room. He says he wants half when we design the product. 70. No, I'm just kidding. All right, let's go over anything. If anybody has anything to say before we end off the show, Matt, you want to end off on something or plug something?
Nope, nothing to plug.
Okay. Where can people find you? You still open up on Twitter for email suggestions, questions, and whatnot, or your email address too?
Maybe to the forums. I try and check that pretty often.
Forums.
This is usually a slow time of year for me because nobody cares their computers are working right.
Right.
Usually they just go shopping. But boy, we have been slammed.
Really?
Lately. God. And then there's a new hospital being built nearby. I got a lot of clients moving from one hospital to the other. People building new offices, and Cox Communications really made my day a bad day today.
Oh. All right. Well, we'll end off so you can get some rest. Hey, Lalo, or some relaxation. Where can people find you?
You can go to lalonunez.com, and I'm trying to post up new content on a regular basis. Not really a daily basis because life's become a little bit complicated, but as much as it possibly can. And for those of you that are listening to this show, well, thank you very much. And Matt is an awesome guy. Some of us come from corporate environments where you might see this done a little bit differently, but you're talking about a couple hundred, a couple thousand, the PCs. What we're covering here is a small business, a network. So
right. Now you come from a corporate environment, right?
Yeah, we have over 5,000 clients. So, wow. And to give you just a small example, like the services each have a different account made for them. Stuff like the administrative password is changed every so many days, and I'm sorry, not days. Every 90 days, and it's documented. There's different policies and procedures for a reason that happen. So,
gotcha.
But no one's gonna go through all that for an office of 10 people.
Right. So. Now you sound like you have a very organized. You're very particular about your documentation.
Well, I mean that, and keep in mind, in a corporate environment, you have a team that just deals with routers. You have a team of people that just deal with the firewalls, with the servers. I mean, where I work at, there's a couple hundred employees just for the IT department. So it's quite different when you're like the only person.
Gotcha.
So.
Yeah, that's a big place you work at, huh, Lalo?
Yeah, it's very challenging, but it's very cool because you get to see stuff firsthand, and it's definitely an eye opener because I started in a small business, then I started to a medium, so I progressed as life has gone on. So pretty cool stuff. So all the information that Matt is telling you is very valuable, and just stick with them and you'll be good.
It's Lalo Nunez Enterprises, right? That business that you work for, Lalo Nunez Inc.
Yeah, I wish.
Okay. Well, I want to thank everybody for watching this live, tuning in. Anybody who's downloading the show, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it. That's going to be it for Podnutz Pro for this week. We'll see you guys next week.
Yep. Good night.
Good night.